All right, so what we will do today, we will discuss about the organization of culture. What do we mean by organization of culture? It's that the elements that are involved in the organization of culture. So there are five main important elements that are required for the organization of culture. The first is cultural trait, then we have cultural complexes, then we have cultural pattern, and then we have cultural ethos, and the last one is cultural theme. So, what do we mean by cultural trait? So, cultural trait means the smallest unit of a culture which cannot be subdivided further because the part of that unit will lose its identity or its significance. So, for example, if we talk about a marriage ceremony, there are different traits in the marriage ceremonies. For example, one of the trait is wedding ring. Another trait is food. So you can't break that cultural trait, right? And cultural trait are not static. It keep on changing with generation to generation, and from culture to culture, or from society to society as well. The cultural trait can be created, shaped, or altered by the attributes such as economics, religion, language, arts, government, or technology. So, for example, in the famous football game, the most important cultural trait could be ball. Another trait could be ole ole. So these were the important elements, no, important example of cultural trait, and one of the element of organization of culture is cultural trait. Then moving towards another one is cultural complex. When all the traits gather together, it forms a cultural complex. So individual cultural traits that are functionally interrelated when combined form a cultural complex. So if we are combining cultural traits, can we combine all the cultural traits? No, because you can't combine wedding ring with a football match with a ball, because wedding ring is a cultural trait of wedding ceremony, whereas ball or football is the cultural trait of football game. So all traits that you are combining should be interrelated with each other. But the combination of that related cultural trait forms cultural complex. So if you look into the example over here, the example says that ceremonies that involve different beliefs. So if you talk about football match, the ball, maybe the basket, um, the chant of ole ole are all the traits, and we combine all this. Players, of course, the ground, of course, forms a cultural complex. So let's move towards next element. The third one is cultural pattern. What does mean by cultural pattern? A cultural pattern is formed when traits and complexes become related to each other in functional roles. Each cultural complex has a role to play in society. It has got definite place within it. The cultural pattern of a society consists of number of cultural complexes. For example, football is a complex culture. Basket is a complex culture. Tennis, basketball is a complex culture. Tennis is a complex culture. All of them together form a sport pattern. So if we talk about cultural pattern, so when we have in culture pattern different traits and different complexes. So we know that when all the related cultural traits combine, it forms cultural complex. But those cultural complex, there are different types of cultural complex in our society. If we take the example of volunteership, for example, so there are different voluntarily working people, and there are different organizations. So, for example, the food volunteer would be a different cultural pattern, would form a different cultural pattern as compared to the organization that are working for elderly people. So, different cultural complex. Similarly, if you look into this example, it's quite easy to understand from here. So, football match is a cultural complex. That similarly, basketball is a cultural complex. Tennis is also a cultural complex, and when all of them combine together, it's formed a sport or a game. Similarly, Islam is a religious pattern that is formed by different or various cultural complexes, such as Salat, fasting, Zakat, Hajj. If we give you another example, for example, there are different events that are taking place. So, for example, Labor Day is a cultural complex. Women's Day It's another cultural complex, Father's Day. It's another cultural complex, Mother's Day. It's another cultural complex, Valentine's Day. It's another cultural complex. And all of them makes a cultural pattern of holiday. So yeah, that's a way to understand cultural pattern. So different cultural complexes forms a particular tagline, but that should be related to each other. You can't relate football match with any religious ceremony. For example, fasting. Yeah, they both are different cultural complex and they can't make a cultural pattern. But there should be similar cultural complexes that are involved to make a cultural pattern. Moving towards cultural theme. So, what is cultural theme? Every culture has a purpose or objective that unites all culture patterns, and it's called cultural theme. That's what I was talking about. So, you can't combine the theme of religion with the theme of wedding ceremony or with the theme of match. So, every culture has a purpose or objective that unites all the cultural patterns, and that forms the theme. The theme of religion is to spread. The theme of workplace is the accomplishment. Similarly, the theme of sports is to gain physical activity or progress in the physical lifespan as well as mental progress. There could be other themes as well. This is one of the themes that I could think about on the top of my mind. Okay, now the last one is cultural ethos. The central point of the culture is cultural ethos. For example, ethos of the Pakistani culture is Islam. Ethos of the American culture is competition. And these are references. So I hope this entire video about organization of culture is clear to you, and I hope that it would help you in your university or in your life patterns of culture. Thank you.